Ladies and gentlemen, it is finally time for me to tell you all about Persona 5. I'm well aware this is over a month late. That's a testament to just how long this title is. And finally, after 100 plus hours, the game is complete. And I can officially say to you guys that this game is the most bang for your buck you can get in 2017. It is such a gigantic game, I don't even know where to begin with my praise for it, but I think I'm leaning more towards just the quality in general. With games like Persona 5 that are, I'd say, more of a linear nature, there's not that big open world with lots of side activities that rolls up your game clock. You normally expect a weak moment throughout the narrative or throughout the gameplay, some point to start weakening it up, and you can see the corners being cut in exchange for a longer experience. And with Persona 5, I was shocked to see that they didn't take a shortcut, that everywhere there were cutscenes that were worthwhile, that there was a narrative constantly being pushed or emotions being established. It's so much that it's hard to believe it's all so good. I was talking to a good friend of mine from YouTube, Nightmind, and we were just raving about the game, that how can we be this deep into it and it still hasn't let up, that it only seems to get better. It blows me away that there is that much quality in this game, and I was so happy about that, because what made me nervous about Persona 5 heading into its release a month ago was that Persona 4 and 3 were very much designed for the Persona fan, and I knew 5 was going to be a high selling game, so my biggest fear going into there was, please do not streamline this title, please make it for fans, and they did just that. Now that doesn't mean that Persona 5 is inaccessible to new fans. I've had a lot of people tweet at me, and I also, just from my own personal experience, could see new Persona fans hopping in with 5. In answer to your question, no, you don't have to play previous Persona games to understand 5, its story, what's going on there, or anything. 5 actually is the best version of Persona to start off with. It has a lot of gameplay tweaks that fixed things from Persona 4, and it also adds things, for example, such as the baton pass in combat. That is a mechanic I cannot see not being in another Persona game, where, for example, when you hit a crit on an enemy or hit their weak spot, you usually get a one more, which means that you're allowed to do another attack. And now you can actually pass the baton to a friend in your party, and they can do another attack with higher damage, making it so that you can constantly keep chaining attacks, building up that damage, and finishing battles in that one turn. Dungeons were often the weak spot in Persona games. Tartarus, as much as I like Persona 3, sucked, and in Persona 4, the dungeons had a theme based off the characters in the game, which made them interesting to be a part of, but in the terms of exploration and gameplay elements, they were fairly barren. Persona 5 changes that all up, adds puzzles, mini bosses throughout, more dialogue between characters throughout. It is a full-fledged dungeon that each takes about 3 to 4 hours to complete. These are enormous, and they take days of preparation, where beforehand you might want to make some lockpicks, some additional ammo to take alongside you, along with buying some medical supplies. And your goal inside these dungeons is to find the treasure, because as the Phantom Thieves, you steal the treasure, the distorted desires of a twisted human being, and when you steal their treasure, that removes their distorted desires, thus changing their heart and making them into a good person. Which brings up one of the best parts about this title, which is the constant wondering of, are you doing the right thing? Is it okay for you to decide as a Phantom Thief what is right and wrong for people? And it's a constant theme that is challenged throughout the title. It makes you think, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the bad thing? And speaking of themes, this game touches upon really dark themes within its characters and its narrative, such as sexual harassment, pedophiles, extortion, blackmailing, murder, etc. It goes the whole way with trying to establish some characters have been through some serious shit. It makes them more interesting to connect to, but I don't want to speak too much on the narrative side of things. It's better just to experience it all for yourself. But one thing I can say in the terms of narrative that is really improved in Persona 5 is the start. Now, some people new to the series will say it's still kind of a slowish start, but you haven't played Persona 4 if that's the case, because as much as I love that game, it's one of my favorite games of all times, that is like Kingdom Hearts 2 slow beginning, and Persona 5 gets you into the action immediately and really builds up the tension in the story and gets you curious and wondering about your character, the situation you're in. It is such a fantastic start. I can't imagine people disliking it because of the situation you're in. Like I said, with the themes in this game, it touches upon a lot of things that other games do not, making them unique to dive into and making the narrative ultimately more interesting, to the point where when you're about halfway through the game, you don't even realize hey, who's the ultimate villain in this game? That's how engaging the point-to-point narrative is in this game, where as you're building your party, you're growing the name of the Phantom Thieves, you slowly realize what is the main point, and it's obviously just becoming a Phantom Thief, trying to do the right thing, the struggles of being a Phantom Thief, but it develops even more than that as you live your day-to-day life. And I just love how Atlus handled this game so much. Now, as much as I like the Phantom Thief theme in Persona 5, I think sometimes it takes too much of the focus because, for example, I'll go do a social link in Persona 5, and it seems like almost all the time, even when I'm hanging out with someone different, I want to get to know them and they end up talking about the Phantom Thieves. It never got to the point of overkill, but there were points in time where I wanted to hear more about the character themselves, not their thoughts on the Phantom Thieves, because they'd eventually get to know me and the person I am, and that's how the connection establishes. I don't want to hear their thoughts on the Phantom Thieves, which is like everything anyone talks about. But this game just crops up little details everywhere. Every day on television, there is something new on that you can read about. There are new conversations scattered throughout the city of Shibuya that you can listen in on and hear what people are talking about in their day-to-day life. And it actually constantly updates, especially after major events, making that additional exploration rewarding, and at times actually starts to foreshadow things that might be upcoming that the narrative might not actually explain as clearly as you'd imagine. As you can tell, the game's just very rewarding for you putting your time in, whether it's through the social links, which give you more abilities than any other Persona game, which is so nice because a lot of times you're there for the relationship and you're still there for that in Persona 5, but they give you constant new abilities that help you in combat, exploration, your day-to-day life, making things easier for you, such as, for example, a social link that allows you to swap out party members and have backup party members earn full XP after battles. How useful is that? I know that's expected nowadays, but in Persona that's never been the case, where you could not swap out party members during combat. You can now, and the backup members earn XP, so now you're not stuck with the same 4 or 5 party members throughout the entire game, but instead you're going to be making use of all 8 that are with you, which is wonderful. I know, like I said, this is something that is modernized. This is something you expect in games nowadays, but in the term of Persona, it's fantastic that they finally added this feature into the game, because now I'm using my full party and it allows me to exploit enemies' weaknesses with even more strategy as I build my party out in a unique way. You can customize the weapons, the armor, the accessories, costumes, and so on. You also earn Persona in a new way. Instead of how they used to do it through the shuffling card system in Persona 3 and 4, you now see a interrogation system which stems off from how the conversations in Persona have always worked. It's such a unique way to take the franchise, and it's so rewarding as you sit down and interrogate these shadows and have them join your cause, and they turn into masks. The game clearly oozes style, as you can tell. Everything about it, from the HUD, which at first looked like a nightmare but ended up being better, to the animations, to how your character acts, to how they talk, just everything about this game, the combat, it's just beautiful to look at, which makes up for what could have been not too good of graphics, but the art style, everything just saves it. See, the thing with Persona 5 that's so hard to review, and I was thinking it the whole way through and I knew it would be really difficult, is that there is so much to talk about with this game. It's really impossible to stay on one track, and it's best just to pick a topic and go from point to point to point to point, because like I said, there's a lot. It is a big, big game, and I give any reviewer out there credit if they manage to cover every facet of this title in full detail, because you'll be here for a while if you actually tried to do that, especially without spoiling anything. Soundtracks are big in Persona. They are, in my opinion, as important as combat and the story, because that makes the day-to-day so nice, because you have that constant song that gets your foot tapping, that never gets old, and thank goodness Persona 5 has just that. Now, Persona 4 has, in my opinion, the best soundtrack of any video game ever created, and Persona 5 does not surpass that. But we have to remember, with Persona 3 and 4, we've had many, many years to fall in love with those games, and this is the first true Persona game we've received in about a decade. So for me, I have to see how the soundtrack ages, but as the current experience lands, Persona 5's soundtrack is nothing short of absolutely excellent. But this game brings back old tropes such as fishing, reading, but it also adds the ability to play video games, watch DVDs. There's 5 social stats now. I mean, just there's so much to go over. The theme of being a prisoner and rehabilitating yourself, rebelling against the corrupt adults, exposing the truth. There's so much to Persona 5. As you can tell, based off how I've practically rambled in this review more than actually just tried to have a concise discussion about it, is that it's all over. There's so much to play. There's so much to talk about. It's almost like to the point where I'm saying if you really want to understand the full picture of Persona 5, you have to play it. And your money will not be spent wrong. You will have every bit of quality in every minute of that experience, because that day-to-day life is such a unique gameplay mechanic. If you don't know how Persona works, what you do is you live your day-to-day school life. You go in there, maybe you'll answer some questions during class, maybe you'll take a test, then you can hang out with your friends, increase that social link, maybe you'll read a book that day. Like I said, maybe you'll play a video game, go fishing, maybe you'll work a day job, earn money, go to the shop, buy some new equipment. There is so much to this game, and that day-to-day stuff is so exciting. And what's even better is that that's not the focal point anymore. Now these dungeons are excellent. Now we also have Mementos, which is the best version of Tartarus you could ever ask for, where yes, you're constantly going down floor after floor after floor, but there's a narrative reason to it, which Tartarus also had, but it wasn't 200 plus floors. But on top of that, Mementos also has unique treasures to collect inside there, unique weapons to find. It's really a place strictly created for the grind. There's mini bosses. This is where you go to complete requests, which have been entirely reworked compared to Persona 4, where it was like a collectathon. Same thing with Persona 3. Now in Persona 5, you go inside Mementos. There's a bit of narrative behind these requests. They're still not that good, but they're much, much better in the terms of Persona in general. So if you couldn't tell, yeah, buy Persona 5, please. If you're new to JRPGs, it'll be a little overwhelming at first, but here's the thing that people don't realize, because I've seen a lot of reviews say, well, Persona 5, if you're not into JRPGs, this isn't a good point to start because there's a lot to do. And in Persona 3 and Persona 4, it's no different. You're overwhelmed right off the bat. There's so many options. And Persona 5 offers more options than ever. So I figured to myself, if you're going to be overwhelmed either way, just start off with 5. I mean, you should play 4 anyway, and 3, but start off with 5. It's a wonderful game. It's truly a wonderful, wonderful game. And there's very few games that I could say took me a month to beat. Now, obviously, I have my own day-to-day life to live with friends, family, other games I have to play with my job and making videos and so on, where, yeah, I'm a little bit busy, but the fact that it still took me about a month as I took my time with it and really gradually carried my way through, I mean, I think that says a lot, because we don't see that in games nowadays. It's practically unheard of, where at least the quality and the quantity match up with each other, which is something you usually see a sacrifice in. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Persona 5 in the comments down below. Like I said, I apologize it's a month late, but you guys still have been asking for the review, and I finally beat it, and I just wanted to share my thoughts on it. So be sure to fire away in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook, the links are in the description down below. Do consider supporting my Patreon, it helps fuel all the content we create here. Other than that, stay sexy, stay active, I love you all, peace.